good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I know you are from different regions because I've seen the registration list, of course, from Africa, the whole continent, actually, across regions, from the Caribbean, from South America. I've seen from Asia. I've seen, of course, from Europe and other regions in the world. So thank you very much for all of you to join us in those innovation series that we organize with the Pan-African Farmers Organization. I work for COLEAD, an association, non-profit association of private sector operators. You see also our DG, Jeremy KNOPS, who will come in at the end for the concluding remarks. We have a very, very exciting topic in that session number 14 already, which is climate resilient practices and innovations by agri-food SMEs. You know that the core part of these sessions is to show successful SMEs, business, cooperatives, farmers, organizations, and so on, who are successful in different areas. Today is climate change and climate resilience, to understand how they have done that, the drivers of success that, of course, can be replicated, upscale, shared with others. And of course, we have some also people coming from organizations like ourselves, actually, that support the entrepreneurs, to grow and to be more efficient. So I will come back to you on that. You have the session today, like usual, translated. We have the languages English, French, and Portuguese. So feel free to use, to choose your language in the little globe you have at the end of your screen. And also feel free, please, to put your comments, questions, insights into the chat. We will summarize that towards the end. Without major delay, I would like to give the floor to Dr. Babafemi OYEWOLE, the CEO of the Pan-African Farmers Organization, as I said, our partner in this series. Thank you very much for joining us despite being on travel today, so not very easy for you. Dr. Babafemi has, of course, a strong background on public, private, farmers, and also international institutions. You might have known him before when he was the CEO of the African Agribusiness Alliance, but also the CEO of the African Cashew Alliance, and former executive director, CEO of the African Energy Investment Corporation. So this is to say that he's very well placed to give us today some remarks, not only on his current capacity, but also on the knowledge he has of the topic, and of course the interest is an area we are very keen within the collaboration COLEAD has with PAFO. Is one, of course, of the areas, because it impacts heavily the small businesses, the farmers, and the smallholders in FINE. So please, Dr. Babafemi, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Isolina, for that introduction. Good afternoon, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on the side of the globe you are joining us for this event. I welcome all of you to this program. The innovation series jointly produced by the Committee Linking Entrepreneurship, Agriculture, and Development, COLEAD, and the Pan-African Farmers Organization, PAFO, has become a very important and popular program that continues to attract many stakeholders in the food systems and agri-business space. This 14th edition focuses on climate resilient practices and innovations by agri-food SMEs, as Isolina has earlier mentioned. And this is because agri-food is one of the sectors that is most vulnerable to climate change impacts due to changes in temperature and rainfall patterns, which poses numerous threats to agricultural production and productivity, and access to markets, and biodiversity and food security. According to the 2023 synthesis report released by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, climate change has reduced food security and affected water security due to warming, changing precipitation patterns, reduction and loss of cryptospheric elements, and greater frequency and intensity of climate extremes, thereby hindering efforts to meet sustainable development goals. Although overall agricultural productivity has increased, climate change has slowed this growth process in productivity over the past 50 years globally. With related negative crop yield impacts mainly recorded in mid and low latitude regions, and some positive impacts in some high latitude regions. Therefore, climate change affects small and medium-sized enterprises and small business on multiple fronts. SMEs and businesses need to increase their resilience and shift towards a low carbon transition. In a survey of SMEs in Sub-Saharan Africa, 48% of exporters were investing in flood prevention systems and other adaptation measures, compared to just 39% of non-exporters. This shows how SMEs' involvement in international value chains can help to increase the adoption of practices that strengthen climate resilience. While climate change impacts value chain actors, it can also offer new opportunities for them and lead to innovations in the agricultural and agri-food sector. SMEs have an important part to play in the low carbon transition, and there is support available through green financing to SMEs that embrace sustainability. Several mitigation options, notably solar energy, wind energy, urban green infrastructure, improve forest and crop grassland management, and reduce food waste and loss, are technically viable and becoming increasingly cost-effective. Agri-food SMEs can reduce the impact of climate change by using crop diversification, which can reduce the vulnerabilities of reliance on one crop and protect them from climate-related risk of crop failure. Also, processing is a solution for local SMEs to develop value-added and quality food products while reducing post-harvest losses and food waste along the value chain and generating increased revenues for producers and the processors. These are issues that will be discussed in this 14th edition and showcase success stories of SMEs in coping with the challenges of climate change. The key questions that will be addressed by the carefully selected panel members and discussants are: what are the key innovations that farmers and entrepreneurs develop and adopt which contribute to climate resilience? What type of investments are needed to support entrepreneurs to contribute further to climate adaptation and resilience? What incentives can be provided to SMEs and smallholder farmers to better acquire technical skills needed to contribute to climate resilience? PAFO is committed to supporting African farmers to adopt climate resilient practices and innovations that will enable them to mitigate the impact of climate change on their productivity and thereby contribute to sustainable reduction of food insecurity in Africa. We will continue to do so through cooperation and partnership with relevant organizations such as COLEAD. I call on all participants to contribute to the discussions and ask questions so that we can come up with workable prescriptions and policy recommendations that will assist agri-food SMEs to better manage the challenges of climate change on their operations. I wish you successful deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Babafemi, and we will happily share what PAFO is doing on climate change, or is planning to do in the coming months. I know that you have a very rich website as well, and are very active. Is one of the areas you have been always very, very active. So we'll share as well some of the key documents from PAFO and their members. So thank you very much again. We will be coming to some of the key topics that Dr. Babafemi has underlined in his introductory remarks. But let's first hear actually some of the businesses that we have today. We have three in this first panel. We start by Peter NYEKO, who is the co-founder of Mandulis Energy in Uganda. You will have extensive biodata and information, so I will just say a few words about Peter. Mandulis Energy is a clean tech startup and social enterprise that is really focusing on developing new technologies and approaches to support the delivery of affordable, reliable, and sustainable energy. And to do that, of course, he works with very strong partners, and I hope we are going to work together in agriculture processing, but of course in also clean cooking, climate smart solutions, and so on. Mandulis company has been recognized by the World Economic Forum as a top innovator for both humanitarian resilience, as you work a lot on the refugee as well settlements, and the circular economy solutions, which is one of the area we are very absolutely interested. And you are also listed on the Asia Africa top 14 African power energy projects 2022 for delivering in rural settings the highest quality renewable energy at the lowest cost possible, using a circular economy zero waste approach. And of course, also you produce biofertilizers, you promote climate smart agricultures and all these sustainable solutions, of course, to replace fossil fuels. So without major delay, thanking you again for having joined us today, despite as well a very tight schedule. Please, Peter, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, everyone. Good to be with you all today. I will share my screen in a second, and hope you can see where we are. Yeah, greetings. Greetings from Uganda in East Africa. I'll try to speak slowly so everyone can hear me well. So I'll speak today about our work at Mandulis, especially how we bring together different approaches to generating electricity and energy in general, and go for that hybrid way of bringing solutions together to be more holistic so that we can solve for reliability, sustainability, and affordability. And we can do all of that in a climate resilient way while focusing on innovation. So we begin by talking about the future. I mean, the reason we're all together today is we'd like to see a more sustainable future in the world we live in. So, and we have hope for that. And that's something we believe in. Now, we know that there are a few issues. We know that there's, a lot of people around the world who don't have access to clean energy or energy at all. And we know that there's an imbalance in terms of how much energy people are able to consume around the world, where you find that in some parts of the world, people consume a lot more energy than in other parts of the world. And when we look at Africa, Asia, Latin America, and the Caribbean, that's, 750 million people without access to electricity. And 250 million of them are actually children. And when children don't have access to electricity, the big issue is schooling becomes a problem, as well as health and other things. And in these areas as well of the world that we're looking at, almost 2/3 of people work as rural smallholder farmers. And for these smallholder farmers, the big issue there is when they don't have access to electricity, they can't process their crops. So they sell it at a low price, unprocessed. And that means that cycle of poverty keeps perpetuating. And most of these rural smallholder farmers, especially in Africa, are actually women. And without access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and productive energy at the same quality as in urban areas, it's difficult for them move forward. And crops are lost without processing after harvest. You need drying, you need cooling, and you need other types of processing as well. But also something that's linked to that is there's a lot of use of wood for cooking, and that's directly linked to, the climate challenges we do have, but also to cost as well. Cost in money, but also cost in time. Because when someone spends 3 hours of their day collecting firewood for cooking, that can be a challenge. And many of them are women and children once again. And when you're cooking with firewood, you might as well be smoking 2 packs of cigarettes each day. But I know it is a problem, definitely, but that's why we're focused on it together. And we see, despite all the problems, we see an opportunity. And, when you think about it, energy access is an opportunity. It's a massive opportunity right now. Every time we see that there is a difference, there's a problem, there's a solution to solve it, and there's an opportunity there to invest in that. Grid connectivity is an imbalance even in some of these communities. And for the poorest communities, there is so little of them who are actually connected. Now, all of that comes together when you look at, the destruction of forests and so on, and a good amount of it going into firewood, but also going into, firewood not just for cooking, but also for industrial use. But now, when we look at Africa,
Peter, unless it's me, I think
they're able to utilize their own. Hello, am I still there? Is it unstable?
Yes, you are there. You are there. It was a very short cut, yes.
Great, fantastic. So when you look at the residues from agriculture, the rice husk, the maize cobs, and granite shells, using those residues to actually power energy generation, to add value to agriculture, but also to produce the fertilizers to increase yields, and also to give the jobs for the people in the agricultural areas to do better, it can only drive the economy up. And so despite the sad beginning to my pitch, I see a lot of opportunities. And we've got to think outside the box and go, if we're looking at drying, for example, do we buy an expensive dryer that costs $1 million? Or could we build a cheap and affordable dryer that costs, 1% of that, but delivers the same quality of service? And this is one simple example of a simple solar dryer, which enables farmers to dry their maize after harvest above the ground, reducing exposure of the grain to dirt, exposure of the grain to kind of chickens and other things running around it. So it keeps it clean, but gets it dry really quickly because it's a simple dry, but it actually works. And you use the heat of the sun and the movement of the wind to move the moisture away. And this simple dryer can get this grain to reach below 10% moisture content. And this way of drying immediately after harvest allows you to even clean and wash and get your impurities down to below 10% of 1%, which means this grain can now be sold at much higher value to global customers in the food and beverages industry. And what do farmers need? Farmers need high quality, affordable energy. They need more energy, and they need access to a wide range of appliances for their own livelihoods, but also for their industry. So we've got to look at it holistically. And on our side at Mandulis, we've focused a lot on gasification and on the fact that there's a lot of dried waste out there. Everywhere people eat rice, whether you have paella, whether you have risotto, or you have jollof rice, there's a lot of rice husks out there. And a third of the rice that's grown by volume comes out as husks. And these husks are a great fuel source to generate electricity. What we do in Uganda, where we're based for most of our work at the moment, is we're developing mini grids. We've got a few of them running. And in rural areas, we set up biomass gasification power plants in hybrid with solar, and that powers mini grids in rural communities, delivering grid quality electricity at grid quality prices, but in rural areas where you wouldn't have expected it, and in grid quality volumes as well. So it's been an exciting journey so far. Our oldest mini grid's been running daily for about 9 years now. So it's a great journey, and powering agriculture is what keeps everything moving for us. And when farmers bring their crops in for processing, and they get the flour, they sell it in the market at a higher price, they triple their incomes. So that's one good thing. Then the waste that's left over is what we then turn into energy, electricity, but also cooking fuel, and biofertilizers. The circular economy keeps on moving, and then that's what makes life happy. But we do all this in synergies. We work together with large global corporate companies that buy finished products from the farmers. We work with farmers groups who help us reach out to even more farmers. And we work in rural communities in places like Uganda. We work in refugee communities as well. And right now, our impact pipeline is very interesting. We're looking at delivering all our projects, reaching over 1 million families. At the moment, we're reaching probably 10% of that. We're looking to grow that. And we're looking at removing, not offsetting, but removing over 1 million tons of CO2 annually, because our biofertilizers are enriched with biochar and lock that carbon into the soil as the yields basically go up. And we're growing across the world now. We're developing right now in South Africa, Botswana, in Kenya next to us, but also in West Africa. We've begun early stage development in Nigeria and in Guinea as well, and also in other parts of Southern Africa, such as Tanzania and Zambia. So we're looking Pan-African right now, and globally early stage, looking at Southern Europe and looking at East Asia as well. So yeah, in the end, when we can deliver better incomes, better health, better jobs with working in this circular way, this holistic way that brings everything together, sky's the limit. And the three important words that I keep saying all the time, whatever we do has to be affordable to everyone. It has to be reliable. It has to be at the same quality as it is anywhere in the world, be it electricity, clean cooking, or anything else, or processing. But it has to be sustainable. It should be able to propagate itself in perpetuity. Thank you very much. I'd love to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Peter. We are going through the various speakers, and then we open the floor for questions. And I encourage you again to put them in the chat that already Peter prepares and himself. And I'm sure that we will get back also to specific examples in the agri-food sector and processing sector where we have seen a change. So without major delay, Frazer HANDONDO is a co-founder of Forest Africa in Zambia, specialist with big expertise on supply chain management. He has also public, private sector, multilateral development agencies, management of projects experience as well. And banking financing, which is very difficult, especially on climate change and climate resilience tools and practices doing without. Actually, I hope you can hear me, because Axel has signaled that I should also speak a bit slower. But anyway, Frazer will share with us the model of the value addition of natural resources management, which is a key part. And the African, sorry, I have noise as well. And yes, he's passionate about the non-timber forest products and of course all the reforestation, which is one of the key areas on the climate change, as Dr. Babafemi was mentioning. The regenerative agriculture, agroecological practices and others do support that. So without major delay, and Gaëtan, we have a noise in the background, I don't know who it is, but Frazer, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I believe Axel will be sharing my presentation. Yes, there it is. Thank you again. I am Frazer HANDONDO, Managing Director here at Forest Africa Zambia Limited, a company that is commercializing the wild fruit value chain here in Zambia. It's such a pleasure for me to make this presentation. For those across the world that are part of this session that don't know the baobab trees, that's what you are seeing on this presentation, on this first slide, and a baobab fruit on the top right. Next slide. Right, so I believe you will all agree with me that most of rural Zambia and pretty much the entire African landscape is predominantly peasant farmers. So they are living a livelihood which is dependent on agriculture as a mono economy pretty much, which when suffers setback, due to crop failure, either due to flooding or drought, sadly, these farmers, they have to harvest something for them to earn a living. So they sort of, resort to cutting down trees for charcoal as a means to earn a living, thereby creating a serious deforestation pandemic. So basically, when poverty is rife near variable ecosystems, biodiversity suffers quite a lot. So as Forest Africa, we are coming in from a pretty much different angle of adaptation. So what we've seen is causing and driving these sort of problems is that, most of our rural communities, they lack alternative sources of income, and also they lack adaptive capacity, and of course, resilience to climate-related shocks. So when they are met with climate shocks, they don't know what else to do other than cutting trees, which are within their approximate areas in order for them to earn a living. So what you are seeing here on these pictures, these are sorry sites that are happening here in Zambia. And I believe in most of the African countries, where there's flooding, there's too much rain or there's very little rain. And so it causes very serious issues with regards to crop failure. So we are coming in from an adaptation perspective. Next slide. So here at Forest Africa, what we have done is that we've identified a solution that is underpinned by principles of ecosystem-based adaptation by creating market linkages for indigenous wild fruits, which are available in proximate areas to the same farmers that we are all talking about here. So this market linkage is an alternative livelihood to any income for rural communities on wild fruits that would otherwise go to waste due to lack of valorization in the past. So basically, it's a business model that is anchored on the triple bottom line of environment, and I'll be able to touch on that shortly on issue of social and economy. So this highly neglected subsector has potential to uplift rural lives and, of course, to contribute to national economy through commercialization. You'll agree with me that if you stray into the retail ecosystem today, our shelves, there's almost zero products made out of indigenous wild fruits. Only these exotic fruits like strawberry jam. We can see all these very nice fruits, apple this, apple that. We can see plenty of that, but zero products made out of our own indigenous wild fruits. And I believe that this is one of the contributions to weaker food systems on the African continent. We sort of relegate our own indigenous foods into some dark corner, where even our own children, they do not know these wild fruits at all. If somebody is eating strawberries here and I'm eating a wild fruit, the strawberry eating guy will look very sophisticated, which is a very, very terrible situation for us. So let's proceed to the next slide. cognizant that I only have 10 minutes. So that is what Forest Africa is doing. Okay, I think the next slide, please. Not sure whether it has changed there. Oh yeah, thank you so much. Now it has changed. Very, very basic highlights
yes.
about Forest Africa. Yeah, okay, no, thank you so much. I didn't, yeah, I've just seen it now. So Forest Africa was incorporated in 2017, but we started operations just around early 2020. We are 100% privately owned business. And also on the left there, you'll be able to see, I know it has moved to the next slide, but there is a team there that you can see from Forest Africa and some of the products, that we are producing. Now, this slide that I'm looking at here is a very exciting slide for us here at Forest Africa. We are operating a zero waste philosophy with this amazing baobab fruit. It's a commercial fruit that we need to plant in mass here on the African continent. You can see there we are making baobab juice from one fruit. We are pressing some oil. We are also, and I think this is one of our innovations, a vegan milk from the baobab seed. Of course, we are not using all the seeds. We are able to, plant, and that's something I'll touch on as a way to give back to the forest. We are planting there. And then we are also making charcoal briquettes for our consumption here from the shells. And of course, some red tea and plenty more with intensified research and development, which we could do more from this particular wild fruit. Next slide. So we are operating a compact and straightforward business model that integrates various players, and we get excited because we are dealing with rural communities, rural women and youth, who are the primary harvesters of these wild fruits. And we believe that by integrating them into this value chain, we are creating the necessary enterprise, which we call rural commerce, which is very critical to move away from the mono economy that is, being experienced by rural communities. So you can see there that they're very critical, a part of our value chain, because we cannot harvest these fruits ourselves. Very, very important, to note that we're a business-to-business model. We supply to the retail space, who then have direct contact with the final consumers, and then we generate our revenues by supplying these wild fruits, to these consumers. Please, the next slide. Wow, so this is just a very brief synopsis of Forest Africa. We are currently valorizing 3 wild fruits, the baobab, the African medlar, and the monkey bread, which we can source from the map of Zambia, which you can see from southern up to the eastern province of Zambia. That is where the baobab belt is. We are working with vulnerable rural communities, of course. And what is more exciting about this is that wild fruits are free. So, for example, compared to farming, even the poor of the poor can participate in this value chain, because for maize, for example, you need to buy seed, fertilizer, chemicals to fight armyworm. But then if we can come in from a different perspective, give them income, then even the poor person can earn something here to buy seed for them to participate in the farming activities. It's a very scalable business. For example, we are capable of producing 1,800 bottles per hour. That's our installed capacity here. And of course, when we look at wild fruits, they have developed some sort of resilience to drought. And, they do very well in agroecological zones that receive less than 800 millimeter rainfall per annum. You'll be reading newspapers where crops have failed, but people are surviving on wild fruits. So there is a sense of resilience there. And of course, in the spirit of, giving back to the forest, if you came to our factory today, you'll find that we have demonstrated that these fruits are very easy to plant. We've got more than 2,000 plantlets here so that we could give back to the forest. So next slide, please. So, wow, this is a value chain, an amazing value chain, we believe, that directly responds to the aspirations of Sustainable Development Goals. We've just given one example here. It's not a partnership. It's just because we've got common interests. So because of our processing capacity here, we accumulate a very rich seed repository, wild fruit seed repository, which we can contribute to different nurseries there as a way to plant back, because that's the way to create sustainability, for this business going forward. And what is more exciting about this business model is that we have created a viable entry point for discussions around community-based natural resource management. In the past, we just tell people, don't cut down trees, and you end there. What we are now saying is that let's move a step further, tell people not to cut down trees, but give them an alternative. And this is one of the alternatives, so that we could start having nurseries to plant more of these trees, which will then contribute to carbon sequestration. We can now enter into carbon market in future. That's one of the issues. And of course, dealing with issues of poverty reduction, in terms of the social side, and then of course, job creation. So in a nutshell, that is what Forest Africa is all about. I believe I only have 10 minutes. We'll be able to share a bit more information in the question session. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Frazer. Just a clarification, your markets are local, national for your products?
Yes, please. So exactly. So at the present moment, we are supplying just the local market. And this is really the amazing part, that I think the consumers, even in our own countries, have just been waiting for something of that nature from their own indigenous wild fruits that they can associate with. That is why this is so exciting. They've literally been waiting for this level of, products on the markets. And we've done quite well so far.
Thank you very much. Indeed, there is a lot of work going now, including from the international community and some of the research organizations we work with in Africa on underutilized crops and really indigenous crops, and not only all the values on nutrition and so on, but also, how they contribute to climate resilience. So thank you very much for a very interesting presentation. So we continue and check also the chat and prepare some of the answers for questions you have. Of course, feel free to respond to those who want to get in touch with you or want to know where your presence is in other African countries to develop business together. So without a major delay, we stay in Zambia this time. You know that in the sessions we have covered almost all African countries, but of course we don't have diversity for each session. I mean, the entry point is interesting models, but we do have, and the same actually for gender, across the sessions and not per session, obviously, it wouldn't make sense. So we go now to Bruno MWEEMBA, who is the founder and managing director of Panuka farm in Zambia, with a very also impressive model of horticulture farm in Zambia. I hope also that we will collaborate. You have been a lot in the headlines. I mean, because Kamala Harris was visiting your farm recently in her US visit. Anyway, your interest and background is a lot on environmental finance, project finance, financial management, and accounting. In addition, of course, of the horticulture in this case. So please share your model with us, because the finance is one of the critical parts of the business, and that should interest a large part of our audience. And thank you very much for joining as well. Please, Bruno.
All right, thank you. And good morning, good afternoon. So I think I've been introduced coming from Panuka Enterprise Limited, that's trading as Panuka Farm, and I'm the managing director and founder, having started this enterprise in 2017. So in the next slide, in terms of just our business model, we are basically B2B, where we do supply mainly chain stores, the mining houses. So we are not a retailer, and we basically stick to bulk, production. And largely now we have actually gravitated much more into kind of contract farming, where the chain stores, the mining houses basically contract us to grow certain products for them. And that is very deliberate, because we're actually trying to kind of de-risk in terms of offtake risk. So we grow what we know will be bought to kind of minimize, production losses. We are obviously looking for export, opportunities for one of the mature products, which is English cucumber. I think the many more other products will come through once our production, capacity kind of gets beefed up. So in terms of our product range in the next slide, mainly we're actually sticking to kind of high value products, if you like, your iceberg lettuces, English cucumber, sweet corn, the sweet peppers, or the three, colors. That's red, yellow, and green. And then we've just actually introduced, butternut also into our, product range. In the next slide, I just provide a bit of statistics around kind of why probably I ventured into horticulture farming. I happen to have worked for an agricultural research institute, and at the time when I got into this business, the statistics basically were showing that the chain stores in Zambia were only procuring around 10% of the produce for these high value lines, and 90% of that was being imported. And I think the interrogations with the chain stores basically pointed to issues of capacity amongst the smallholder farmers in Zambia, and that capacity is kind of threefold. The first is basically the issue of quality, and then the issue of quantity and lack of consistency. But there was also the issue of just lacking very good production infrastructure and the know-how in terms of knowledge and general entrepreneurial skills to basically start up and run a successful horticulture farming enterprise. So in the next slide, my belief is that when we talk about success running of any enterprise, the four fundamental factors of production still remains as the cornerstone of running any enterprise. But I think there's this emerging issue now around climate change, which for me is probably the fifth factor of production, because if you ignore that, you can tick the land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship aspects, but this will actually come to haunt you. And I call these three aspects, the quality, quantity, and consistency, as the holy grails of horticulture farming. But what we've actually decided to do is to kind of climate proof our production. Why is that the case? The chain stores that we work with obviously would want quality products. They want the quantity, but I think the critical ingredient is around consistency. We supply around 4 times in a week to most of the chain stores, but then the issue is with the different climatic changes, whether it's the summer excess rain, like last year we had quite a lot of rain, and then sometimes also in the cold season, you actually find that with horticulture production, you get affected. And so it actually calls for you to begin to look at climate proofing your production so that you are actually in production all year round. And that's something that we realized after 3 years of operating in open field, where we were having issues in being consistent with our production, but also the quality of how our horticulture products were actually affected because of just lacking the right production infrastructure that really speaks to climate proofing. So one of the things that we're actually looking at is kind of low-hanging technologies in terms of climate proofing our production, because even if we brought in some of the high-end climate proofing technologies, we are also trying to make sure that we are a neighbor's keeper. Our colleagues, the local farmers, should actually look at technology that is kind of a low-hanging technology, as opposed to what I call utopian technology that you can only admire, but then it's very difficult for you to kind of get hold of. In the next slide, I just present to you some of the statistics that, again, I think speak to what my colleague Frazer HANDONDO spoke to. The statistics for Zambia is that Zambia is actually losing around 250,000 to 300,000 hectares per year. And one of the leading drivers of deforestation in Zambia is actually agricultural expansion, as people are actually trying to increase their production. They look at cutting more trees so that they farm on bigger land sizes. And one of the things that we're also trying to showcase is you can still do it on smaller pieces of land, but I think it's the way you structure your production. And so one of the models that we've actually adopted is this food, water, energy nexus in the way we do business. On the energy side, just to let you know that we are actually running 100% on solar. We are not connected to the grid. And this also just helps to debunk the myth that you can't do production on solar. And we are obviously onboarding other technologies like, the biodigester, so that we use the bioslurry also in our production. On the water side, obviously, onboarding technologies such as drip irrigation, but there's other technologies that we're trying to look at. And one of them is actually water harvesting. It's work in progress right now, and bringing in some of the precision, farming technologies in terms of just resource water, use on the farm. So these are kind of very critical, components into our business model. And in the next, slide, I just show you some of the different, production environments that we have, where we have a combination of, say, shed nets to greenhouses, the tunnels. And what this enables us is that depending on the different climatic conditions, we can actually shift our horticulture production so that we are not affected by the seasonality and the climate, sorry about that, the changes in the climate. So we don't have off-season. Like I said, consistency for us is a critical, value proposition, to the chain stores. So we are basically doing all year, production, no off-season, and that is only enabled in the fact that we've got different production environment that enables us to be kind of malleable and ductile in the way we do, things. In the next slide, it just shows you also some of our recent, investments in additional greenhouses, but we've also just put up some very lovely, 10,800 square meter shed net that will be very key in our production in the summer. And this is something that we'll keep on improving in terms of having a great mix of different, production environments. But one other thing that we've observed in the last, 4 or 5 years that we've been using a certain kind of tunnels is that now we need one that has what we call top vents for certain, weather patterns. So again, the whole issue is around matching your production infrastructure to the different kind of, weather, patterns. Next slide, please. In the next slide, I obviously, given that we have just about 10 minutes to present, I implore you to go to the Panuka Farm YouTube channel. You'll find almost 200 videos there. And here I just showcase to you some of the videos that we do provide. Don't get surprised. In those videos, you'll be hearing a Mr. Panuka. That's me. That's still Bruno. Except, obviously, I think when it comes to the farm, I brand myself by the name of the enterprise. But you'll find I talk about some of the different, ways on how smallholder, farmers can really do this climate adaptation, resilience, use of drip, shed net, climate adaptation, and all that. So once you get to the Panuka Farm YouTube channel, I think you have quite a bit to look at, quite a great expose of different subject matters that speak to what we're talking about today. In the next slide, I think it was just indicated that, yes, I did host the US Vice President for a very good 2-hour session. And basically what she came to see is some of the efforts that we have made as a farm towards climate proofing our production, and also appreciating some of the things that we are doing around water harvesting. So again, this was just an endorsement of some of the efforts that we've made as a farming enterprise towards this agenda around climate proofing. And she's not the only one that has come through. For your own information, our transition towards climate proofing was actually sponsored by the World Bank in 2020 when we were transitioning from open field to protected environments. So the person you see here is actually the World Bank Vice President and Chief Financial Officer, Nsula Kanti, that also came through as part of the M&E trip to just see the transition and the progress that we had actually made in their investment as World Bank. So I just wanted to implore you that I have just written a book, also called The Farming as a Business, book. For those that are in Zambia, I think it should be ready next week. And then for our colleagues globally, I think this book will be available in the next 3 or 4 weeks, I think online, Amazon and other platforms. But in here, I've also articulated how you can actually proof your production beyond, other, facets. So I think that's my last slide. I just implore you here that that's the email if you wish to get in touch. And then our Facebook page is also quite very active, and our YouTube channel. So that should help you have a 3-course meal, if you want to dine in, just understanding what we do as a farming enterprise. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Bruno, and congratulations for those high-level visitors you have in your farm. Thank you also very much for the videos. I've watched some of them because you have really many which are very, very interesting. So I do encourage, people to visit the page as well. It's always very interesting to share with the videos and practice, than in addition, of course, to books and studies. And just a clarification, Bruno, with how many smallholders do you work?
Well, we are trying to onboard. Yeah, we are trying to onboard smallholders, but it's been a bit of a challenge, given that the products that we do, they still need to invest in the production infrastructure, because some of the products like English cucumber, you can't do it in the open. But there are some contracts that we have now with the mining houses where we are onboarding other products that we don't farm, like onion, tomatoes. We currently have roughly about 15 or 20, but the production consistency again is a big challenge, and we see this like when the rains come. Most of these smallholder farmers actually are unable to supply us. They still have issues around energy because I think the national grid, extension in Zambia is less than 30%. So energy is still a big issue for most of these smallholder farmers, even in terms of the irrigation. So there's quite a bit, and it's good to hear some of these energy solutions that could go, out there. But that's one of the biggest challenges that we actually have. Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. Yes, that's a challenge from my organization as well, that the colleagues working in the field experiment as well. And that's where we also support some of the small holders and farmers group to, get improved quality, consistency, and so on. It requires a lot of support, and actually mostly with support from the European Union and the OECPS, as well as AFD and others. We manage to train and support through our technical assistance many as well of the smallholders. We do recognize that challenge indeed. And transitioning then to this part, because you all are in business, but at the same time, you also all have support to the smallholders. We now get to the panel of organizations that work closely with smallholders. We are very keen because we organize with the Pan-African Farmers Organization, but also at COLEAD, all our work, including through the businesses, the SMEs or the big companies that also we have amongst our members, is that, of course, it touches and benefits smallholders, which is the ones we all want, their lives and incomes and revenues improved. So Audrey DARKO is the lead of Sabon Sake in Ghana. And actually, not only she's a young woman, climate tech entrepreneur, passionate and working amongst the rural farming communities, but she's also working in this area of organic fertilizers, because sometimes that's the easiest solution for some of the farmers groups she's working with. So developing processes to convert biomass waste into regenerative material. You are working, I think, on sugarcane specifically, but please tell us more. And just saying as well that I read that in the 22 United Nations Climate Change Conference, so the COP27 that was held last year in Egypt, you were announced as a winner of the United States Department of Climate Entrepreneurs competition. So I am, and we are all very happy to see also many women in this area, entering and having very good results. Audrey, please, I also thank you very much for joining us, because I know that you are traveling. So it wasn't easy for you to be with us now, but thank you very much again. Audrey?
Hi, Isolina. Just a few glitches here on my side. I will probably need about a minute. I just messaged Excel, so if I could have that. Sorry for the inconvenience.
No, please. Yes, go ahead. I wanted also to tell you that in the program, as you had it, we had Ibrahim Traoré. Gaëtan will tell me if he has joined or if he's in the list of the participants. Is the head of climate finance division on the at the West African Development Bank, BOAD. We have some challenges because he's also out of reach. Communication is easy, but it's not always that easy. Especially, you recognize also that in some countries it can be a real challenge when you travel. So I hope he can still join us. But we have Jacob. That is joining. You don't have him in the program, but he's joining from Jacob Maiga, who will be joining from Farmerline, also in Kenya, and share some of the tech and smart farming practices in Kenya. And let's see if Mr. Traoré is joining. And if not, of course, we will get him in a different in a session to come. This is also to encourage you. I think Axel has shared the email that we always provide for this activity, that many of you send us messages about their businesses that we didn't know, and they would like to present and share their experience, and we welcome you to do that. We had already a number of them in those sessions, so please continue to do so. I would like also to announce, and please, Audrey, let me know when you are ready. I just anticipate some remarks that I was making at the end. We also want to announce that in the week of the 16th of October, as you know, is the World Food Day. 16th of October is the World Food Day, and the week is the World Food kind of week. With the assistance of my colleagues, especially from Infocom, communication, and Gaëtan, who you don't see, perhaps you see him now if he wants to put his camera, but he's the one running the Zoom sessions and helping you to connect. We will, following many of the requests you have of having a platform where you can continue to exchange your experience beyond, those sessions, which of course are short, because we can't afford too long time. You are all busy. So we will be launching a blog, to feature all the information we have so far on the innovation sessions, as well as a platform where you can bring more information, exchange, etc. There is, of course, you can see from the chat, a lot of B2B going as well, and business linkages, and we will be happy, to provide a platform to facilitate that. Audrey, you are ready now?
Yes.
Good.
Thanks.
You're most welcome. Thanks to you.
Great.
And if it's difficult that you share the presentation, Axel can help from our side. Yeah, it's coming. Great. Perfect. We see the screen.
Hi, Isolina, can you hear me now?
I can hear you and we can see the first slide.
Okay, let me just be sure it's moving. Okay, all right. All right, I think we're good to go. Should I start? Are we good?
Yes, please, please, go ahead.
Okay, all right. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. It's good evening from my side, but it's okay. Hi, everyone. Good evening and good morning and good afternoon to everyone. I'm Audrey S. DARKO, and it's a pleasure to be here to share a bit more about what we do at Sabon Sake. We are a climate tech organization at the intersection of regenerative agriculture and carbon financing. Simply, what we are excited about is improving soil health, monitoring and tracking it across farming communities, especially the climate vulnerable ones, and then empowering farmers' economic livelihoods as a result. So this is me, just a bit about me. I'm Audrey S. DARKO. I'm a farmer, I'm a researcher, and then I'm also lead at Sabon Sake. We currently focus on a lot of land restoration project development, and our headquarters currently is in Ghana. Sabon Sake started officially at the ending of 2018, but we took the leap of faith to build, piloting, and go full launch as of the pandemic year. So it's been an exciting journey so far. Our vision really is to ensure that we are building a network, a large network of regenerative farmers that can grow food in a healthy and sustainable fashion, devoid of any climate shocks, climate threats, ranging from drought to extreme weather temperatures to soil erosion. We strongly believe that farmers within any landscape they find themselves in should be able to grow food well. A quick one on Sabon Sake. Sabon Sake is derived from the Hausa language, and we're excited about living up to the meaning of our name, which means to transform or to make something new again. And for us, we are not just starting out by improving soil health, by harnessing the power of waste streams from nature, which should be seen as a resource, into value-added products and services. In our case, we've started off with producing Sabon Terra. I'll share a bit more. It's a soil solution that improves soil health, drought resilience, and sequesters carbon. Whilst as well coupling that with transforming the mindsets of the farming communities and organizations we partner with. It's super imperative that as we innovate around products and around processes, we need to build the capacity of the farmers that we work with. Those are the front lines, ensuring that we can exchange their learnings and knowledge, both the indigenous local knowledge, as well as the new unique ways of doing things, and blend them together. So I would give a bit, give a brief background about some of the climate shocks that are affecting people in the sub-Saharan Africa and in Ghana as well. I'm sure is evident. We've got droughts, we've got flooding. There's a lot of soil biodiversity and organic carbon loss. And you would wonder why we're focusing on soil health. It's because, one, right, soil contains 2 times as much carbon as the atmosphere and living flora and animal combined. 2, sustainable soil management can offset between 5 to 20% of our current greenhouse gas emissions. Also, up to 58% more food can be produced if we can sustainably manage our soils. This is crucial if we need to keep increasing food production and doing this in a more healthy and sustainable fashion. So what do we do? Simply, we address the threefold problem, right? There's over 65% of soil degraded across sub-Saharan Africa, specifically in Ghana. We have Ghana being predicted to be water stressed in the next 2 years. There's a lot of drought going on, threatened by the climate. You have 8 times less nutrients per hectare than the world's average of about 132. That's really sad news. And then you also have shortage of soil inputs, right? That is supposed to help regenerate, boost organic matter and nutrients. And the deficit is almost about 50% annually, right? One key thing that we like to address in our soil solution is that there's a loss of soil carbon, and it's been estimated that it's the second largest source of greenhouse gas emission. So how then can we ensure we are sequestering and locking down stable carbon in the ground? And then the last problem that we felt was key to actually closing the loop on our business model is ensuring that farmers are known to be wealthy. We know the stereotype as being poor, living below the poverty line. And for us, we really want to change that narrative and ensuring that currently they just have an access of 1.7% of climate finance. And that is, it's not the best, considering that they are the ones putting food on our table. So I'll quickly just touch on one of our farmers, Bia the farmer. And she's one of the 43% of women farmers across the world that are faced with a lot of barriers to growing food, right? She's heckled by climate shocks. She's living in a climate vulnerable farming community that is threatened by drought specifically, and as well, incomes levels are below $4. That is really meager. And when you have the onset of climate change coming in, failed harvest seasons, you find that it's not the way to live for a farmer. So simply, what do? Sabon Sake does two things. The first one is leverage on nature and tech-based soil carbon removal. So we produce biochar-based organic fertilizers, harnessing the power of sugarcane, like Isolina mentioned, as well as cocoa pods and rice. And then we build on that to create unique soil formulations and create a standard NPK version as well. This allows us to increase water retention by about 60%, sequester, the estimated carbon sequestration amount is about 2 kilograms per kilogram of Sabon Terra. And then you also have the replenishment of organic soil nutrients. So we are adopting a circular model, starting off from harnessing the power of waste, creating more sustainable biochar soil booster blends, selling that off and distributing within our farmer network across Ghana and beyond, and as well ensuring that farmers earn extra or additional income as a result. I'll talk more about that quickly. So currently our business model is an end-to-end carbon removal project development strategy. What we do is we partner with corporate companies. These are companies either in the food sector or non-food sector. We align in objectives in the sense that they want to either scale their climate impact and as well, or grow food or enhance their supply chains, right? We would curate and develop and vet out farming communities across Ghana and specific places across Africa that are threatened by drought, flooding, whatever, or issues around soil degradation. We then send that proposal or design to them, and then they match and connect, and then they're able to invest into that. Currently, the traditional method is a lot of the money might stop at the project developers, right? Where they would take the money, go and implement either reforestation practices or restore lands. But then they would neglect the fact that the farmers at the front lines also need to benefit from that revenue. And then we decided that we need to create a model that allows us to share part of that revenue with them, to help them shoulder the burden of transitioning from conventional farming practices to more sustainable ones that would help them tackle the crisis. So at the moment, where the gains for the farmers that they're able to improve their soil pH, they have access to inputs now as a result of investment from corporate companies, as well as through the sale of our products. And they are also guaranteed markets. So you'd have food companies, maybe like Unilever, actually excited about supporting regenerative farmers that are equipped with the knowledge and skill to grow food in a more healthy fashion, right? And then as well, the farmers get to have extra income that would help them, pay for labor cost, etc. This is the first year that we've actually launched into a project development phase, and we're excited about it. So Ghana is our beachhead, and we're excited about regenerating lands. Currently, according to the World Bank, there's about 3 million hectares plus of land that needs to be regenerated across Ghana. And we're hoping that we could also scale that in markets like Madagascar, the Caribbean, Morocco, Kenya, and places that really have been affected by climate change. So I've said quite a lot, but honestly, I'm excited to share more in detail. Feel free to email us at hello@zabansaki.com. We also have a video on DWTV. You can get to see a bit of what we've done in the past. You could also visit our website, and we'll be excited to get in touch. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Audrey. Very much appreciated. You will see also in the chat. And this brings the collaboration between research as well and farmers communities and people like you. We advocate a lot, and my colleagues working on research and innovation do so that the businesses, the farmers organization, of course, the smallholder groups organize, do keep in touch, contact the research organizations in their country, eventually beyond. You need a lot, especially on the climate, be technologies, be practices, and so on, that you link with that as well. So it's really a great job. Without major delay, as we are always running after time, as I said, I don't see Mr. Traore yet from the West African Development Bank. So we go to Jacob MAINA, with the CTO of Farmer Lifeline Technologies in Kenya. And this is actually pioneering solar-driven crop pest and disease scanners, and working closely with smallholders, not only in the country but beyond. And you will tell us a bit how your business model works. I think you have joined, and thank you very much for also coming in, because I know that you were traveling as well. So Jacob, you are there? I'm not sure you can. Yes?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
You want to share your presentation? Or...
Yes.
Okay, go ahead then.
Can you see my screen?
Not yet, but I think it's coming. Perhaps if it's difficult for you, Jacob, perhaps it's easier than Axel shares it and you just indicate, because we can't see it now. Is that possible?
And now?
No. We see the screen of... yes, now it's Axel as... Thank you, Axel. As share it, you are in the first slide.
Okay. So thank you for sharing. So
there is a sound. You have a background sound that could be a bit difficult. Okay, let's try. Go ahead, start, Jacob.
Okay. Give me just a minute. I'll try and solve that. I think it's much better now.
Yes, it is, I think. Yes, please go ahead. I alert you if, yes, we can't hear you.
All right. So I'll just take 8 minutes because of those 2 minutes. My name is Jacob. I am a CTO in a company called Farmer Lifeline Technologies. Go to the next page. So we are a company based here in Kenya. We address one major problem, the main one being the delayed identification of crop pests and diseases. So you realize for smallholder farmers in Africa, starting with here in Kenya, they don't have a good way of identifying pests and diseases in their farms. So what that means is they end up losing up to 47% of their crops. That is almost half in every year, according to a UN report, to pests and diseases. So what then they do is, the only option they have is they will go buy some fertilizer, whichever they think is the right one, or consult the closest agrovet shop, come and apply on their crops. So what that then leads to is soil degradation and emissions. Emissions, the research shows that excess application of fertilizer emits up to 24% of the total greenhouse emissions. And this mainly comes from the farmer doesn't have a good way of really identifying the fertilizer they should apply, the quantity, and the exact fertilizer or solution to any pest or disease in their farm. So what this also leads to is very low, or a lot of soil degradation for their soils as they apply these fertilizers. So next slide. This problem has existed for a smallholder farmer in Africa has to depend on one calling a drone company from an urban area to come to their farm, scan their crops at a cost of $100 per hour. That is very expensive, and very few smallholder farmers can be able to access that. Secondly, these farmers are expected to get the services of an agriculturalist. The ratio of an agriculturalist to a farmer or to farmers is 1:1,200. That means agriculturalists are already outnumbered, especially in the Kenyan setup and in the East African setup. So, and then that agriculturalists come to the farm, collect samples of that farmer's crops, the ones that are affected by a disease, takes them to a lab. The farmer pays $20, then the agriculturalist returns with a technical report for the farmer. So next slide. So that's why that problem has mainly existed. And the reason for that is those two makes the farmer not have timely detection of pests and diseases, and it's very expensive for them. So what we did is we developed the first solar-powered crop pest and disease detection device. So it's a device that is put in the farm. It's patented here in Kenya and patent pending at the African level. It is solar powered, it is put in the farm, and then it has a camera scanner that continuously captures images of the crops in a farmer's farm. Once it captures these images, it compares them with an online database, and in case it detects any crop pest or disease in those images, it identifies the pest or disease and notifies the farmer on a simple text of the crop pest or the disease. So once the images, it continuously captures them on at intervals of every 2 seconds. So anytime there is a pest or disease, it is able to notify the farmer on a simple text, and the text goes to the farmer to showing the crop type that they have planted, the pest or disease that has been identified, any nutrient deficiency that has been identified, and then recommends the solution that farmer should apply. So for example, if it detects, let's say aphids, the farmer has planted kales, the text will show the farmer has planted kales, there are aphids on those crops, the farmer should apply XYZ type of fertilizer or XYZ type of pesticide. So what that does, and then also it also shows the exact quantity that the farmer should apply. So what that does is it ensures like this, one, they have daily detection of diseases. Two, they apply exact fertilizer or chemical that is a solution to the before this has been identified. We would get a pest or a disease at a 97.5 accuracy. It's an AI device. That's why we are able to get a very high level of accuracy. And then the fact that we leverage on a global agri-research database, that's why we are able to identify these pests and diseases at a very high level of accuracy. So next. So we charge a farmer $3 for using the devices. So the farmer does not buy the device, neither do they own the device. The device is owned by us as the company. One device is able to scan the farm on a radius of 500 meters, 5 to 600 meters. So on that 5 to 600 meters, for small scale farmers, you realize there are either 2 to 3 farmers on that 5 to 600 meters. So it's able to serve 1 to 3 farmers. So each farmer pays us $3. So from one device, we are able to get $9 per device. We also collect a lot of data from the devices in the farm, and we curate that data and commercialize it to agricultural organizations, agricultural stakeholders, fertilizer manufacturers, so that they can know where do they invest in distribution channels for distributing their fertilizer. We commercialize the same data even to governments, so that as they allocate the resources and agricultural expertise, they can know the exact places and the regions where to allocate the resources. That ideally makes them, or enables them, or empowers them to make data-guided decisions based on the data that is collected from our devices. Next slide. So to a quick one, the competitive advantages is that one, there are mobile applications that do almost what we do, something like planting. So the difference with us is that our device is permanently in the farm. A farmer doesn't have to go to the farm and scan the crops, or on an Android phone. They are notified wherever they are on a simple text. So our devices are permanently in the farm, scanning a radius of 600 meters, texting the farmer wherever he is, and recommending the solution that farmer should apply. That farmer gets that text within 5 seconds of infestation, ideally, much faster than the 2 weeks they would have waited for a lab a report, or call in a drone from Nairobi, or no, from the capital cities. Also, it cuts on the cost the farmer should have paid. To more advantages is that we have already patented, both locally at the African level, and signed a global exclusivity. Next slide. So far, directly and indirectly, we have impacted in total over 60,000 farmers, working almost 10,000 every month. Some of these are repeat customers, especially here in Kenya. We are in 17 counties. We have piloted in 5 different countries in Africa. And we have received, we are at the very early stages of a company that has approached us to also pilot and implement our technology in the European market, starting with Italy. We have also received the COMESA award and been identified by the Ernst & Young as a highly scalable technology across the globe, and sponsored part of our team to be at the Silicon Valley. We have also received the Wired's Global Citizen Award. Next slide. And I'll finish with a quote from His Excellency Paul Kagame, that I'm inspired to see such an innovation from the East African community. Carbon farming is truly here with us. And from our CEO, Esther, as the founder, I assure all of you that you shall be proud to have given us the wings to fly as the organization and stakeholders in this team who we would work and want to work together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jacob. And thank you very much to the CEO, Esther, because I know it was also difficult for your company due to other schedules to join us. Very interesting indeed. I saw the praises from President Kagame as one genuine African-led, farmers-focused company that basically provides extension services, which was before extension in a more traditional ways and has disappeared and has left a bit the farmers with not very much solutions. We had planned to be on one of the coming sessions to do more the smart farming part, but we thought, okay, this could be already a starting point. You will have to share a bit more in the Q&A, and please put more questions if you have, of course, and insights. That I think you train as well the farmers, and that they fully own their data as well, but that you train them on data management, because that's one of the critical parts from the farmer side, that they don't lose the key data. They belongs to them on their farms. So without a major delay now, I have a few questions that were posed in the chat, and I could summarize for almost all speakers. One is about the certification, the finance, of course, and the how do you plan to upscale. A bit more on specific examples. For example, for Peter, digesters, generators, how do you apply that to a specific, a crop, and how well it works for the smallholders. So specific examples on that. The equipment, of course, the, climate smart equipment has a cost. Does any of you, some ideas were already shared, but for example, be locally produced, be imported at a cheaper cost, but this remains a big problem actually, especially for the smallholders or MSMEs. For the underutilized and indigenous crops, there were some questions about the markets, but you mentioned it was local markets, but how are consumers aware and sensitized about buying those indigenous products, and how are they sensitized in general? How do you feel that the last end of the value chain, the consumers, are aware of all the climate change problems that the smallholders and the small companies, local companies, are facing? And if you have any interesting story to share. These are a few I see now, but Axel, if I need, the others are a lot of exchange between yourselves and exchange visits. We wish, I call upon any of the partner organizations that could be among the participants to try to work with us on study visits and study tours to exchange, of course, best practices and experience in the field. That is always a very, very good solution. So perhaps we can start in the same order than the people that spoke. Could we start by Peter, if you are available? Yes, please. And of course, any other idea, comment, insight that you want to add after what you have heard. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone. I saw a few questions addressed to me, and I tried to respond to them while typing. But yeah, what I've added there are two links. One link to a Deutsche Welle TV interview on the ground with users, and it explains exactly what's happening. You can see all the operations in motion, about 5 minutes. I've also added a second link, which has a few more interviews with users on the ground as well. And that's from a platform which has USAID, UKAID, the Netherlands Foreign Ministry, and the Canadian government. So I've added those two in there. But in general, how do we do what we do? We manufacture as much as possible on the ground. We've got our own pellet mill that we manufactured ourselves, design as well, our own biochar production gasified cook stoves that we also manufacture and design ourselves. And when it comes to the gasification equipment, there are parts of it that we also design and manufacture ourselves on the ground. And even when it comes to anaerobic digestion, a lot of the work we do is also done in situ. When we do our manufacturing in a country, it reduces the cost of taxes because manufacturing is done in country, and it reduces the time spent on importing everything in. So you find that only particular IP, which has to be made in the Netherlands or has to be made in India, would come in, but the majority of the mechanical work and electrical work we manufacture ourselves, and we make some of our own IP as well in situ. It helps brings the cost down. And then in terms of how do we finance what we do, yeah, I mean, kind of working in this space, forward sales of carbon credits, forward sales of carbon removal credits are a very important way for us to finance in geographies where interest rates are very high, but also we make sure we work with equity investors that are very patient and debt lenders that are very patient, because patient capital is crucial in this. Yep, thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter. Frazer?
Thank you so much. I think from the charts, I did see a couple of questions there. I've made an attempt to respond to a couple of them. However, I'll start with one that you had indicated around sensitization of consumers for these underutilized fruits. So the good part, and I think what sort of makes it easy for us as Forest Africa, is that these are non-wild fruits. I think the trouble really is that at what point do consumers eat them? So either, before we could valorize and commercialize them into products, people just eat them maybe along the streets, very briefly in small quantities, at the markets. So it is something that they are aware of. So when they are walking into the the aisles in a supermarket and they see these wild fruit-based products, and what we've done from a marketing perspective is that we've named them using local names. So when they see that local name, it clearly attracts them, and then they sort of check it out. But to answer, there is a lot more work that, of course, we need to do to create a lot more visibility, around the need for us to consume more of these indigenous foods. And, we're quite passionate about promoting them in order for us to promote very strong food systems here in Zambia, and I believe on the African continent. We need to eat more of these, and it requires a bit more investment on our part, to market a lot more, to get people to know the nutritional profile of these wild fruits. They are organic, natural, and their nutrition is quite unparalleled and unadulterated. And we try it at our processing facility here to make sure that we retain, the nutrition of these wild fruits. The other question I had seen, of course, somebody was asking around climate change effect on these wild indigenous wild fruit products. And in my presentation, I did mention that one of the exciting parts is that these wild fruits somehow, perhaps through creation, they do very well in agroecological areas that have very poor rainfall. And what we've seen, if you even read some of the literature around, is that some of these trees are fairly resilient to drought. But of course, persistent drought reduces the yield, of these wild fruits. But so far, crops might fail. As you know, farming is very critical and integral to our lives. But we've actually seen that crops sometimes they do fail, and in most cases, our rural communities they do not have irrigation. So, however, you find that when crops fail, the wild fruits will give fruits. So that actually shows that there is some element of resilience in this. So far we are sort of shielded, but we know that persistent drought will ultimately affect fruit yield, even with the same wild fruits. So we still have a bit of a challenge there. But at the present moment, there is sufficient runway for us to have and harvest these wild fruits, even during a drought. We've seen that, in the few years that we've been operating. So that is, I believe those were the two questions, and some were asking about our contact details, which I believe have also shared in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Frazer. Frazer, can you mute? because I think there is an echo. Yes, it's better now. And just a clarification, many of the participants also are with their mobile phones. They follow, you know, the sessions, and they don't always see the chat. So that's why we keep, putting some key questions together. But that means also that you don't necessarily see some of the contacts that have been shared. So please reach us. We cannot share due to the data legislation, the contacts, the private contacts without the permission of the person. But please, if you reach out and you ask us to put in contact, we will check and gladly do so. Bruno, please.
Thank you. I think I only saw one question around the issue of the fact that we do not have off seasons in our production. I think the question was, how possible is that you can actually be in all year round production? So we basically have three kind of production environments in Zambia. We have like summer, where we're getting into now, August to about November, which is characterized by serious heat. And what you want in that environment is a production environment that will allow for aeration and not build up of heat. And this is why we are now building quite a lot of these production shed nets or net houses that allows us for summer production. That obviously helps you to minimize insect infestation, but also the issue of evaporation, because during summer, that's when you also get affected with a lot of evaporation. So the shed net environment will actually help you in terms of just water management, but also improves the quality of your products for that period. So in that period, then we use mainly those shed nets. Then once the rain season comes in about November to March, April, you also want an environment that will have a bit of a breather, but will not allow rains for us to actually be able to produce with minimal issues. And with the buildup of humidity, there's certain types of tunnels that do not allow for a lot of aeration, and then you end up with buildup, especially of fungal diseases. So at that point, you actually want the greenhouses that have kind of breathers at the top, like fixed vent, so that you do not have a buildup of these diseases, fungals. But then also once you get to like the cold season around April, May, all the way up to July, that's obviously in the context of Zambia, it gets very cold during that period. And what you want, that's where the tunnels become very good, because they can actually store the heat. So we basically are modeling our production environment around those three environments, so that once we get to this other production environment, we kind of adapt and move in that direction. So one of the classical cases is like our iceberg lettuce production. Once you get to the rain season, you can't farm it in open field or even in the net house, because it begins to rot, and the chain stores do complain. So I remember, I think last season when there was a lot of rainfall, given that we were amongst the few that had the kind of production environment that adapts to the excess rainfall, we ended up with a skyrocketing demand, given that those that farm in open fields had a lot of issues in production. So basically, we are looking at different production environments, understanding the different climatic conditions, so that we adapt and move in that direction. And that then enables us to be in production all year round. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bruno. Very interesting. I have to say that COLEAD, we can share this information when we send the email, follow-up email. With OECD, among others, we have shared some information on the climate change studies per crop and per country in some cases. And indeed, it does confirm your strategy, Bruno, and it's a very interesting area where we need absolutely to do more. But Jeremy will talk to us about this. Audrey?
Hi, Isolina. You're muted. You're muted.
Anything you want to add from your side? As we are getting soon to the end of the session.
Yes. I think my colleagues have said a lot, and just to add, I would just touch on the fact that if we're looking to improve on food security, I think the conditions, specifically around soil health and focusing on improving soils in a way that we can build immunity for the plant, resilience for the plant, so that we don't have to be using a lot of, harsh chemicals, as well as spending a lot of money to kind of grow food would be my take and my advice for other farmers within the farming space on the call. Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much. And actually, there were comments now in the chat on the need from some countries, at least after listening some of the presentations, to share more information on the technologies available, because in some countries in Africa and beyond, of course, it's much more difficult to access those and even to be aware of what is out in the market. So I think indeed, Audrey, the work you do as well is highly relevant. Jacob, you have a few questions as well, and in addition to one of my colleagues precising, please, if you can, the crops and the pests, the specific ones your system is able to cover or you are working on. In addition, yes, to the the work with smallholders and yes, the expansion.
Thank you. So I'll start with, so I had quite a number of questions. So I'll just combine them. So I'll start with the latest one on which crops and pests and diseases that our system is able to cover. So our system is able to detect and to work with up to 8,000 crop species, because we query from a global database. So let me explain that. So our system is not necessarily locally based only to be used in Kenya. It can be used in any country because it queries from a global database. And that's why in my presentation, you noticed we have had very successful pilots in 5 different countries. So for the quite a number of people who are asking me from Zambia, I had another one from Gambia, and quite a number of them that were asking, I would be very open to a partnership with you for us to be able to get the device to you and to your market. Our device can, whether you are in South Africa, I ship a device to South Africa, you put it in the farm, buy a SIM card from, let's say South Africa, use EcoNet, you buy EcoNet SIM card, put it into the device. I send you a mobile application to configure it, and that will take probably 5 minutes in the configuration. And once that's done, it will operate exactly like it's here in Kenya. So when you put it in your farm, you will be able to receive those notifications within 5 seconds. So I'm really looking forward to the many partners that we can get from here, who we can work with in the different countries. So that said, outside Africa, yes. So even Africa, very possible. So that's just an addition for me. I think I've
on training of farmers, Jacob. I think you have a connection problem, though. So if not, we will share more.
So
the line is bad now. We cannot hear you. So if not, you will. Now, yes. We try, and if not, you put it in the chat
so
or.
Collect. Maybe I can.
Jacob, no, I think it's a bit difficult now. We really have lost the connection. We can hardly understand what you are saying. So, Gaetan, if you can mute. Yes, we can't, Jacob. Either you have time, or I don't know if you can now, where you are, to put it in the chat, or you share it with us more in detail, and of course we will be happy to share in the email we will send again. This is to say that yes, we will share all the presentations in all languages, because obviously we cannot put all languages at once, and we will share also the recording of the session, as well as any other document that will be helpful. So unless any of you has more questions, because also time, we have 15 minutes left. We agreed from the start, Dr. Babafemi mentioning that SMEs and smallholders need really to embrace the climate resilient practices and innovative solutions, that we need to, and each of the speakers has mentioned the technology, the skills, skills related also links to research, finance, training, to of course develop those, adapt and develop those innovations, to have their business growing, have of course climate and climate change literacy, and looking at the cost of adaptation. So on those are a few areas where Jeremy, so the DG of COLEAD, who has been listening carefully to the whole session, thank you very much, can share with us what some, of course, any thoughts and any insights, obviously, but also some of the areas that from COLEAD we also support, and gladly will upgrade and upscale with some of your partnerships as well. Jeremy, thank you for being with us. Please.
Thank you very much, Isolina, and good afternoon, good morning, good evening from wherever you are connecting. I would like to start, of course, by thanking all the panelists for sharing your expertise, experiences, and for being so inspiring. I'd also like, of course, to thank all the participants to this session. Your contributions are worth a lot. Your exchanges, also your ideas, your questions. This is exactly why we're pursuing this format of series with PAFO, and as Isolina mentioned, we are planning, of course, to try to provide you with a more permanent platform in order to be able to continue these exchanges between the sessions. Thank you to PAFO for our continued fruitful collaboration, and of course thank you to our donors, especially the EU and OECPS, without whom these series wouldn't take place. So it was a particularly interesting and relevant session today. We all know that climate change is here and has been for a number of years, as explained by the PAFO CEO during his introductory remarks, as reflected by the different stories we heard today, but also from our perspective at COLEAD, as reflected by the applications for support that we're receiving on a daily basis throughout the world within the framework of the programs that we're currently managing, amongst which the Fit for Market Plus program. Climate change is a global issue, but it's felt at a local scale at really varying degrees, and it impacts people, communities differently, depending on the sector of activity, on socioeconomic conditions, on where we are, but it does have an impact on all the different type of impact. We try to have a look at COLEAD and have kind of a triple angle when looking at climate change and agri-food, agricultural systems, because at the same time, of course, we know that this is one of the sectors that is the most vulnerable and most impacted by climate change, for all the reasons that have been mentioned today. It is also recognized of being today one of the causes, one of the key contributors to climate change, while at the same time being recognized as providing some solutions. So there's the kind of this triangle of roles within the agri-food agricultural systems that are important to keep in mind. Now at COLEAD, of course, in partnership with others, amongst which with PAFO, we have different levels, distinct levels, but complementary levels of intervention when it comes to climate change. And I won't be too long, of course, but I'll try to summarize them briefly. So the first level for us, it's really at a macro level. It's, of course, understanding the issue, the issues, and making sure that we can contribute meaningfully at a policy advocacy level. Our positioning is that we are looking at climate change as part of our overall sustainability approach, looking at the 3 pillars of sustainability, on the social, economic, and environmental side. This is in line with our mission as an organization, looking at providing a contribution to all major SDGs. And in practice, it means defending a policy coherence for development approach throughout all policy initiatives that are being taken, which have a direct or indirect impact on climate change. So meaning to have a balanced but impactful, meaningful look at all SDGs when implementing new policies, of course, not switch climate change, but also food security and poverty alleviation. So that's kind of the first level. But the second level, at a meso level, we are looking at identifying, monitoring, contributing to building new technologies, practices, and of course on how to access them from a funding or from an implementation perspective. So that's quite a lot of work around, of course, pest and disease management, which has been a core area of focus at COLEAD for a number of years, but also increasingly around soil management, water, energy, waste. All these areas today are key, and again, while at the same time have, of course, are directly impacted by some of the effects of climate change. For some of them can also be seen as opportunities to contribute as part of the solution to climate change. And the third level is at a micro level, and this is where to echo really what Isolina was referring to. This will form part of our direct support to individual entities to really be able to embrace these new technologies practices through technical assistance, training, contributing to business to develop a business plan to access the right financing in order to implement those changes. And I'd say that when looking at climate change and, of course, the mitigation and adaptation, our core focus has been and will be, I would say, in the key months and years to come, in line with Fit for Market Plus mandate on really resilience building, so climate resilient practices. This means, and very practically for cooperatives, producer groups, and SMEs, really having a look at, in the first place, how to absorb shocks, crisis, how to just survive that phase. And of course, we've been talking about the climate here, climate crisis, but we have had some major changes, cumulative changes in the past couple of years around logistics, of course, with COVID, which require a certain degree of agility for operators. The second part is more at an adaptation level. This is really, I would say, the bulk of the support that is being provided, how to adapt some of the really long-standing impacts that are being felt, and that's really through the adoption and embracing new technology, adoption of new practices, production management practices, and thirdly, it's more at a more transformative level. It's really at the end looking into how to adapt the business model, the entire business model, to make sure that production continues, sales continue to increase, the economic entities are able to continue to develop themselves sustainably. So this is, in a nutshell, kind of these are our levels of intervention. We'll increasingly be working in these areas, part of this kind of overall resilience building, and increasingly, hopefully, looking also at because all that I've been mentioning here is really more looking into dealing with the consequences of climate change, whereas there's, of course, as I mentioned, also a huge potential, and as illustrated by some of the testimonials today, at looking at agriculture and agri-food systems, also part of, or contributing to be part of the solution to climate change. So that's, of course, more into climate, accessing climate finance, and so on. But that's would be not at the moment the core area of focus of what we're doing, but within the objectives or what we would be willing and looking into, also based on the applications for support that we are receiving. So that's in summary. Again, thank you all for the contributions. Thank you to the teams, COLEAD and PAFO teams for putting together this extremely relevant session, and we'll be looking forward to the next one already. And again, please contact us should you be willing to continue pursue these exchanges. Send an application for support to COLEAD to work specifically in these areas. I guess the links have been shared. And on these final words, I'll pass the floor back to you, Isolina. Thank you very much, and see you soon. Have a nice day.
Thank you very much, Jeremy, for bringing the comprehensive view. I mean, these sessions are just a very small part of what we do, just highlighting some examples of successful entrepreneurs and supporters. So, but we do much more alone and in collaboration, as you said. So please reach us. I mean, send us an email and make applications for support. And as it was mentioned, is very much needed for the small businesses. So I have nothing more to add. Everything was said. Thank you very much to everybody. The speakers, of course, we keep in touch. And then all the participants, interpreters, of course, and all the teams that are behind this work that we hardly mention. Axel, perhaps they can put the camera. Gaëtan, in the Zoom always, and before Zoom and post Zoom sessions, and working on the blog. You will be having it by mid-October, and of course social media from PAFO and from COLEAD, so and the interpreters that allow us to exchange in 3 languages. Keep well and see you soon.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much.
Thank you again, everybody. Thank you. And thank you for your time. Thank you for being with us. Bye.